Hi there, and welcome to session 4 of our 8 sessions on how to have powerful conversations about your performance. My name's Rachel Smith, and we've probably just reached the part of the conversation that's really tricky. So you've just had the wonderful experience of listening to someone's version of their story, um, and they've told you all about the year that they've had, and you've done brilliantly at drawing out their version through prompting questions, through really cool coaching questions that get them to expand on that and the impact they've had. And then there are parts of that you're listening to where your face is like this, and you're like, OMG, I have no concept of what they're saying. This is actually deluded, or just completely wrong, or you really need to address that part of the performance that they've just told you is exceptional in their mind. And you get that feeling of, oh, what should I do? Now, there's a part of Stephen Bartlett's book, The Diary of a CEO, one of his principles, one of his ways of working that I think he believes make you successful, and they do, to be fair, is never to disagree, which sounds awful on the surface because what, you just let them carry on with that point of view. But the point is, if you start the next section in this navigating the gap with no, you're wrong, then you might as well just stop talking from that moment on. Or even if you start with I disagree with that point of view, completely lost the person. So why not begin this part of navigating the gap with the phrase, I heard you when you said? Because the truth is, there were parts of what that person reviewed the year of that were you could recognise and you could sign up to and agree with. There were parts that you couldn't, but it's not everything they said that felt inappropriate, that felt like there was a gap in your perception. So start your navigation of the gap with your review of their performance by recognizing something where you can agree with them so that they feel that there is a sense of connection between the two of you and your viewpoints, not complete disconnect. So start with the phrase, I heard you when you said. I really heard you when you said that you encouraged people last year and really drew them out of themselves in team meetings. I saw that and I was so grateful because there were some quiet people in our team and that really helped us out. So yeah, great. That was brilliant. I heard you when you said sweet nectar to the ears. Then how do you address the bits where you really don't see the same thing? And again, it's not about saying, I disagree, you are wrong, because you are going to get people's heckles up if you say that they're wrong. You put them into a confrontational situation. So there is something called the art of reframing, where you ask them to view something in a slightly different way. I was wondering if there was another way of viewing it, is a really brilliant question to begin that point of view. I was wondering if there was another way of viewing your assessment of that project to deliver 10 blogs during the summer months. I was wondering if you could explore with me the data that supports your viewpoint that they were a successful uh, project, a successful campaign, and that we got many lead gens from them. So you signal that you've disagreed. You've signalled that there was little evidence of the person having delivered on results, but you haven't said you are bad, you are wrong, and put that person into a fight flight position. You've encouraged them to rethink and re-evaluate that situation. And then there another sentence starter that really helps is I also wanted to acknowledge. So when you've done something particularly challenging, when you've looked at an area where you have disagreed, you might all then want to go to I also wanted to acknowledge that what you said about your ability to ask the right question at the right time and challenge with courage is completely and utterly true. You do challenge with courage, and I value that. It's important for our team. I wonder if could be the beginning of a reframing. I wonder if that could be done with less aggression in your voice in the future, because then people will be more responsive to the challenge that you bring. So those sorts of phrases, those sorts of handling of the situation allow you to navigate that gap without provoking that inner child that we've spoken about, that stops that conversation from being productive, that stops the message that you're passing along from being heard. So here's a silly task for you to think about. I appreciate there's nothing wrong with having punched today in the face on your wall. I just want to acknowledge that. I mean, it's a really go-to attitude, and I'm going to get you. I'm going to get the world. But uh, they've just reported to you that they feel they've brought a lot of compassion to the office in the past year, and that they've done much to build trusting relationships. But you've had a lot of people worried about their combative nature. How do you address the disconnect between this person believing they're building trusting relationships with greater compassion and the report of their combative nature from across your colleagues? 30 seconds to have a think. It's a tough one, right? They feel like they're being a nice person, and other people are reporting that they're not, that they feel intimidated maybe, and they feel that the other person is far too assertive and aggressive, and I mean that's difficult, right? Now, one of the biggest pieces of advice I can bring you, or guidance I could give you in dealing with situations like this, is to focus on the behavior and not on the person. So when you look at the actions of a person, you are saying that it's not the whole of the person that's an issue, it's just something quite specific that you have pointed to. There was that time when you snapped quite badly in a meeting at X, and that really upset them. I'm not sure that was the compassion that you're thinking about. So you've given them a specific moment in their behaviour that exemplifies the idea, and you might need to give them two or three to show them that it's a pattern, but you are still giving them the opportunity to separate themselves from the reality that you're describing. If you say you are aggressive, you create a difficult environment in our office, you are aggressive when you speak, then you completely subjectify it rather than objectify it, and that person will feel a sense of threat and they will close down. So when you're suggesting improvements in behaviour, reference that behaviour, don't reference the person. That's a really important thought process. So if you have a look on the screen here, what I've done is I've given you some examples of, in green, focusing on the behaviour, in red, focusing on the person. So I sometimes spot that you leave work early. That's a behaviour. You're spotting the thing that is a problem for you, which you perceive as being lazy, as you perceive as being not very committed. But if you said you are lazy, then that person becomes defensive and upset with you. Have you noticed your habit of speaking over people in meetings is a behaviour? You are too aggressive is an attack on the person. So it's about how you choose to express the navigation of the gap that you are speaking to. Now, here's a moment of reflection because this is tough. Because you'll be tempted to do this as a speech where you tell them all of these things. I want to know how comfortable you would be in having this part of the conversation as an open dialogue where you ask questions and use questioning and reframing to navigate the gap rather than working through a set of bullet points, which is the more comfortable option. So, a quick 30 seconds, reflect on your style, reflect on how comfortable you would be to do this as an open dialogue. I want to challenge you to work on the basis that it should be an open dialogue and not a series of bullet points that you work through. Now, that's going to be difficult and it's something you're going to have to practice and learn. But if you reel off a whole load of observations from your sheet, it looks like you haven't really heard them at the beginning, that you've just played at that sandwich that we love, and now you're delivering the bit in the middle. So having it as an open dialogue also gives that person the opportunity to go on the journey with you and come to similar conclusions as you. So remember those two tricks, those 2 points of how to deal with this really tricky part of the conversation, which is one, have those learned sentence beginnings that acknowledge the person's reality or reframe that employee's perspective. Second, remembering to reference the behaviour and not the person. Keep it objective, focused externally on the behaviour, and not overly subjective on the world of that person. Tough, but massively important. Wow, that was a weighty section of this meaningful conversation, probably the most important in improving that person's performance. Next time, we're going to focus in on the future and how to develop that person's career and their sense of engagement with the organisation. Remember to share your comments below, and I really hope that this has been insightful for you.